Hello and welcome to my raid guide for the Kor'kron Dark Shaman's Inflexible difficulty. Now in this fight you'll fight two bosses, Cartas and Harome. They both have a shared health pool and are tanked together. The gimmick of the fight is that as their health gets lower they gain more abilities, which makes the fight harder. And finally at 25% they will bloodlust, doing 25% more damage and getting 25% more haste. So it's definitely quite the fight, and it's a little bit hectic because there are so many abilities going around the place. Now the best way to go through this fight is to explain each boss and then the strategy to downing the counter. So let's get into it. First of all we're going to talk about Harome. Initially he does Froststorm Strike. This does 210,000 damage and increases damage taken by Froststorm Strike by 25% for 30 seconds. This stacks and therefore needs a tank switch. At 85% he gets Toxic Mist. This is simply a 30-second dot that will tick every 3 seconds. Now with each tick your nature damage taken increases by 10%, so if you are at high ticks of this, then you just want to watch out for the nature damage that you take. At 65% he does Foul Stream. A player is targeted and a line is drawn between them and Harome, and then eventually this line will kind of explode. He does this every 30 seconds. You do have to watch out with this. The best strategy is if you get this, then you run to the side of the raid so that the line doesn't go through anyone. That way you are the only person that gets hit. If you let your entire raid get hit by this, it could be a significant problem, let's just say that. Now finally, at 50% he gets his final ability, which is Ashen Wall. This is a wall of elementals, and they can't be targeted or tanked. They attack players near them for pretty high damage, so you don't want to stand near them. If you are going through, I'd recommend using some personal damage mitigation, because they do hit pretty hard. Another thing is that hunters can disengage over them, which is pretty handy. Essentially for Ashen Wall, you want to run around it if possible, and tanks need to be very sort of aware of their positioning so they're not forcing DPS to run through it. Now next we have Cartas. So his default ability is Froststorm Bolt. This is a nuke that hits the tank for 280k damage, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it. At 85% he gets Toxic Storm. This summons a large whirlwind that does 200k damage to players inside it every 2 seconds, and also spawns a whole bunch of smaller tornadoes which move around the place and do 200k damage to people in them every 1 second, and they also knock you up in the air. So pretty much, like, these are very easy to avoid and there's really no excuse for being inside one. So yeah, just don't run in them, and these are pretty much a soft enrage in that they will eventually clog up the whole area. Now at 65% he does Foul Geyser. This shoots out a whole bunch of blobs around him. Anyone near a blob when it hits the ground and just sort of in that general area takes very heavy damage. Now the blobs themselves are not tanked, as they do 70k damage to players within 3 yards of them. Simply just have the ranged players nuke them down, they're really not a problem. And finally at 50% he does Falling Ash. This is pretty much just a large red circle that gets put in the floor. 15 seconds later this ball will come down from the sky and hit it, and that will do 1 million damage to anyone inside it and 210k damage to every player in the raid. So there's definitely going to be raid damage, but it's pretty moderate. It's mainly just don't stand in it. Now the red, the red area is absolutely ginormous, so you really just need to be sure not to go there. It's also very easy to spot, so it's not really an issue. Now there are 2 adds. These are just 2 wolves and you nuke them at the start, and that's really it. Now let's talk about strategy. So the way we did it is that we pulled the bosses up to the northeastern part of the area, pretty much to the right hand side of the building that they initially spawn in. And we started the fight there, and we pretty much kited them to a new part of Orgrimmar every time they had covered the current part in abilities, mainly Toxic Storm. This meant that we were able to fight free of Toxic Storms being annoying for a large portion of the fight. Now right after the pull, the DPS will nuke down the wolves. They can then start working on the bosses. The bosses are tank swapped as usual and are tanked together so that the raid can benefit from cleave damage. Things that the tanks have to know is that it's very important to position the bosses so that it doesn't mess up the melee DPS. There's lots of things on the floor, so you can't position the tanks near them, and the 2 tanks do need to be very, very coordinated so that they can at least, get swapping right and also just keep the 2 bosses together. So it's definitely requires a VoIP, I'd say. Now continue like this until 25%. Now once you hit 25, they will do Bloodlust, and at this point so should you. The room at this sort of stage of the fight will just be completely covered in Toxic Storm, so you really do want to just get them killed as soon as possible. If you're DPS or a healer, you just need to be really aware of your surroundings, because even losing 1 DPS could mean that you can't down this phase quick enough before it kills you. So that's really it for the fight. Honestly, we didn't find it too hard, and if you're good at just staying with the mechanics, then hopefully you shouldn't either. So that's it, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.